Okay, let's move to time certain, item 762.
Establish a cooperative agreement with the Mount Tabor Neighborhood Association to ensure that clean water will be maintained in the Mount Tabor Park reservoirs at the historic levels that produce the park's iconic views, and to prioritize and implement the maintenance, repair, and preservation of the reservoirs, and authorize funding for work identified in the 2009 Mount Tabor Reservoirs Historic Structures Report.
The council directed the parties, in this case, the Mount Tabor Neighborhood Association and the Water Bureau, to get together and to see if they could hammer out an agreement.
The resolution before you today reflects a concerted effort by the Water Bureau and the people empowered by the MTNA board to speak on their behalf to come to a carefully crafted and balanced agreement that preserves the nature of Mount Tabor Park, its reservoirs, and commits the city to maintain, repair, and preserve its assets.
As you know, water is a defining characteristic of the historic Mount Tabor Park, and this park was designed around the now historic reservoirs and their deep water views.
The city recognizes that the reservoirs are assets it has an obligation to maintain, repair, and preserve. The reservoirs are not only an integral part of the park, even after they're disconnected from the distribution system, they will remain as a part of a complex system of pipes, valves, and related equipment that are part of the overall utility infrastructure that we've been tasked to operate and maintain. Indeed, one of the commitments we made to council and to the public regarding this project is that the work we're doing is not going to prevent us from using the reservoirs in the future to store drinking water. Because of their location and because of the elevation of the reservoirs, it's not inconceivable that the reservoirs, that Mount Tabor will eventually resume operating as a site for future drinking water storage in the decades to come as Portland grows. While it would require work and effort similar to what we're preparing to do at Washington Park, these are assets that we cannot and should not let go. That also means, though, that we have to continue investing in their maintenance, repair, and preservation. That a cooperative agreement and a cooperative relationship between the city and the people we serve is in our best interests.
The Historic Landmarks Commission and the State Historic Preservation Office and the Mount Tabor Neighborhood Association all agree that water should be maintained on this site at historic levels for the majority of the year.
Which things exactly should be done in the way of historic restoration. Most of it is deferred maintenance, but just to put the structures back together and make sure that they're going to continue to hold water into the future and that they're continuing to have the characteristics that are part of the historic district.
There's the actual commitment on the part of the city of Portland, the financial commitment, and that is that the city has an obligation to maintain, repair, and preserve the reservoirs, and that the council should allocate at least $4 million over the next 4 years, starting in fiscal year 16-17. That sum recognizes that some of the projects anticipated may be more expensive than we're anticipating today.
Everybody who is involved in this negotiation, all of us are taxpayers, ratepayers, so we want to be prudent about the spending of public money at the historic district, but we also recognize that these are capital assets that need to be maintained and need to be taken care of, and they require extra attention because of being on the National Historic Register.
It's important to recognize that this resolution is binding city policy, and it is the law of the land. It was crucial to the negotiations that the council make certain commitments before the Mount Tabor Neighborhood Association was willing to state that it would not appeal the council decision on the land use review. We understand by city code that a resolution is as binding as an ordinance as long as it has a statement that says it is binding city policy. That's the purpose of that very last "now therefore be it resolved."
With respect to maintaining water in the reservoirs, it's totally understood that this is not drinking water, and it's totally divorced from the current distribution system for drinking water.
That's correct. if you leave those 111 million gallons, because that's what it'll end up being in the 4 basins at 85% full, if you leave them sit from now until the end of time with just that original amount of water, they're going to get kind of scuzzy. And so our intent is to drain them and refill them.
So reversibility means partly, in the original land use application, the inlet pipes were going to be filled with concrete, and it would have been really, really difficult to be able to, in some future possibility, to even bring water into the reservoirs, let alone to be able to reconnect it to the drinking water system. And what we've been assured is that the severance that needs to happen, the cut and plug,
Right.
that's happening now, that you can unplug and reconnect if for some reason in the future it was determined that that was important to be part of the drinking water system.
The reservoirs are at a perfect location and a perfect elevation for the city. If in the future the rules don't change, but in the future we need more storage, they are a place where we would be able to store water, but we would not be able to store it out in the open. So the cut and plug, Commissioner, is, imagine this is a pipe. You're going to take about 10 feet of pipe section out, weld a flange on either end, then it is now plugged.
And let me be clear, Commissioner Salzman, the Bureau has made a commitment, without regard to the legal issues you raised, that this is a reversible process. So the planning for this decommission is reversible, and that's reflected in the negotiations and in the Bureau's commitment. And there are lots of hypotheticals in the future, but this work will be done in such a way that it's reversible, and the Bureau has made that commitment.
We will still use the reservoirs on the occasion when we need to drain our conduits, and we've spent all summer dumping water into Reservoir 1 so that we could drain our conduits and do conduit work. So we will still be using them. They will still be part of our system. They will not contain drinking water, but they will be part of our system.
All right.
Saltzman?
Well, I want to thank the Mount Tabor Neighborhood Association and the Water Bureau and all the people who have been active on these issues for so many years. I guess that includes myself, so I should thank myself for some 12 years of involvement in this issue. I'm glad to see it finally come to a good compromise, and that will keep water in the reservoirs, not drinking water in the reservoirs, but the water, and will maintain the aesthetics. And the council does commit to making certain historic renovations to the reservoirs and respecting their status as historical landmarks. So this compromise, and I'm very pleased to support it. Thank again all the efforts on it. Bye.
Novik?
I really appreciate everybody's hard work, but I'm concerned about making a $4 million commitment like this outside the normal budget process. So I vote nay.
Fritz?
It's great that you have worked so hard and gotten to this result. And I want to also recognize, as well as Stephanie Stewart and John Larson, Dole Smallman and Paul Leisner, who were involved in the discussions to get to the original land use application. We need to recognize that we have historic resources which we are required to take care of. I very much appreciate all of the work that's been done. Aye.
This issue has been at the forefront of this city since the early 1990s. And I have had the honor of being the commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau now for about 2 years. I wasn't sure we would ever reach this day, but the reason we have reached this day is primarily because of the 4 people sitting before us, who, when directed by the council to sit down and work through their differences and try to reach a collaborative agreement, did so. And they did so. And so I want to begin, John and Stephanie, to thank you profoundly for your public service. I want to be very clear on the record that the Portland Water Bureau will honor this agreement, and I will faithfully enforce the terms of this agreement, both the letter and the spirit. And this is a milestone for this council and for the relationship between the city and our friends in Mount Tabor over an issue that people are passionate about, the historic reservoirs. And so I thank you. And today I'm very proud to vote aye.
Hales?
And this is a good agreement, a good resolution to this concern and what was a conflict. But there's some bigger traditions at work here, and I think there are at least a couple, I know there are at least a couple of us here, Commissioner Fritz and I, I'm thinking about in particular, who got started in civic life by volunteering to be involved in their neighborhood association. And one of the traditions that's at work here is that the neighborhood associations are influential. And in fact, the city council has been deliberate about that over the years, even though the mayor at the time of the creation of the Office of Neighborhood Associations, a guy named Frank Ivancy, voted against it and said, we're funding the opposition. I guess he was partly right about that, at least at times, but that was the point, that neighborhoods have standing politically and they have standing legally, that we give our neighborhood associations the right of appeal with no cost on land use cases. And this is why, because every now and then it has to come to a land use appeal. So this is a validation of the clout that people have when they get involved in their neighborhood association and dig into an issue. And I want to thank all of you here from Mount Tabor and other neighborhoods that continue to do that, because it continues to work. Second tradition here, and I guess I want to offer my reassurance in addition to the two most important words that were spoken today, and those were when David Schaff said part of.
Involved is the actual commitment on the part of the city of Portland, the financial commitment.
The reassurance that I want to add is that the City Council of the City of Portland makes financial commitments and keeps them. And my job, part of my job as mayor, is to propose a budget each year. And what the last line of this says is that the financial obligations and other commitments approved by this resolution are binding city policy. I want you to know that I take those words very seriously, and this city council, when we make a financial commitment, whether it's to a school district or to a county when they need our help building, say, a new Selwood Bridge, I want you to know we're good for this, that we will find the resources to make good on this commitment, because that's what we should do to honor the good work that you've done. So thank you. Well done. Aye.